This is Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. When I think about the critical issues facing Black and Brown residents in the St. Louis area, I often ask the questions: how did we get here? What's holding us back? And how do we progress? At 9 PBS, we want to deepen our understanding and change the narrative. Join me as I look for answers and discover solutions on today's podcast. She is the 47th mayor of the city of St. Louis. Tishaura Jones made history in 2021, becoming the first Black woman elected mayor in the city. Today, we'll have a wide-ranging conversation about her goals for the city, re-election, economic justice, population loss, and of course, crime. My guest today, St. Louis Mayor Tishaura O. Jones.
Listen, St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center and the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation.
Welcome back to another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. Thank you so much for subscribing to this podcast. It means so much to us because what it means is that you are actually listening. And we do want you to listen, St. Louis, because we want to answer a couple of core questions. How did we get here? What do we need to do to progress? What or who is holding us back? And so with those questions in mind, we launch into a whole new year of podcasts here at 9 PBS. And so you do need to subscribe. There's a little button. You just click subscribe and you are, voila, a subscriber. We also would like you to share this podcast. Don't keep this goodness, these great conversations to yourself. Do, in fact, share. And then if you, and I'm sure today you will, want to leave us a comment, something moved you, you have a question, a follow-up, leave us a comment. I will definitely read all of them and get back to you. Thank you so much again for joining us. And Happy New Year, by the way. Well, the mayor of the great city of St. Louis joins us in studio as we kick off 2024. It is always good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, too. Happy New Year.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I know you get a lot of requests. So I really appreciate you spending this amount of time with us here.
Oh, no, anything for you.
So do you have 2024 goals for yourself, for the city, for your son?
Yes, absolutely. I'll start with the easiest, which is my son. I want him to stay on the honor roll and want him to continue to be a good basketball player and an overall good person. Mm-hmm. He is a sophomore in high school now and is 6'7" as we're and growing as we're talking.
He's still growing?
He's still growing. But he is enjoying himself at school and just looking forward to him continuing to be a good, well-rounded person. For myself, I would just want to continue growing, and continue learning and continuing to do a good job for the city because I feel like this is the work that God called me to do. And I want to do the best for the most good for the most people that I can.
Absolutely. And then for the city?
For the city?
There's like 15 million policies.
Right. How much time do we have?
We have as much time as you have.
I would love to see us continue on this trajectory. I feel like there's an excitement in the air in the city right now. I agree. A lot of things are trending in the right directions. We just finished a crime summit, a regional crime summit, bringing our regional leaders to the table to talk about how we lock arms and row this boat all forward in the right direction. Looking at just 2 or 3 things that we can all do to help stem the tide of crime in our communities, to take care of the people and make sure that they continue to be safe and free. I want to continue our work in the jail, continue the work that our commissioner has been doing to improve conditions there. I want to continue the work that we're doing in economic development and continue our economic justice action plan strategy to invest in neighborhoods that haven't been invested in decades.
Right.
And I want to continue to work with our partners. We can't do this on our own. So work with our public and private and civic and faith partners to continue to take care of our residents, to identify new opportunities with the federal and state government, and start to bring St. Louis back.
Let me start with the first one, which was your son.
Yes.
I have asked the mayor on any number of occasions, when is she, you know what I'm going to say, when is she going to write a book? Because on Facebook, you often post under the title, Stuff Aiden Says.
Yes.
And the first time I saw it, I thought, well, that's a book. Because he is always saying something that is so funny or insightful or a tad bit sarcastic, maybe. So,
I need to first go back and see what all of those hashtags say.
There's a lot of them.
There are a lot. And as he got older, the Stuff Aiden Says was not suitable for for social media. So, but
you strike me as a mother who you talking to.
Exactly. No, I know you don't think you're talking to one of your little friends.
Exactly. I've said the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, and on the personal level, I was always, when I first got to know you, I remember you were going to every leadership summit, it seemed, that you could get your hands on. You were always talking about leadership. Why was that always such a focus for you to not only learn how to become a better leader, to study it? It seemed that you were studying leadership.
Well, just like sports players continue to train, just like, business leaders continue with business development, I think politicians have to continue our leadership training. We have to hone our skills to become better leaders and bring those skills back to our communities so we can lead our communities into the future. And I also, travel to, other cities to see how they're doing things differently, because we don't have time to reinvent the wheel.
And we don't need to.
Right. There are other cities that have tackled the same problems that we have. And so all we need to do is steal those ideas, because the best mayors steal other people's ideas. Steal those ideas from other cities, bring them to our environment, tweak them, and let them roll.
I remember years ago, not years ago, you've been criticized on a regular basis, as many mayors are, of course, but you were criticized for traveling to go and do leadership training.
Yes, I was. But, this is the job that I'm called to do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. We cannot keep our heads in the sand and think that we have all of the solutions. So we have to go and talk to other people and see other things and see things, firsthand to see how things work so we can bring them back to our environment.
I want to wrap economic justice in with a conversation about the Ram settlement money and the ARPA funds. What is, in your mind, economic justice? What does it look like in the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, so economic justice means that we continue to develop, transform, and empower our communities. And that's the new mantra that we've developed at the St. Louis Development Corporation, which is headed by Neil Richardson, who I know has been a previous guest on this podcast. And that means looking at how did we get here, right? Which is what we're trying to answer today.
Right.
So economic justice in St. Louis is looking at communities that haven't been invested in decades. I was at a senior facility, a senior event one day, and an older gentleman walks up to me and talks about well, what are you doing with, all of the money that the city's received? When is it going to come to our communities? And I said, sir, how long does your community look like that? He said, about 40, 50 years.
Oh, my.
And I said, well, sir, how long have I been mayor? And he said, well, 2 years. And I said, exactly. We didn't get here overnight, and we won't get out of this overnight. But we have to make intentional decisions on spending and making sure that communities are uplifted with the blessing that we have received from the federal government and the Rams settlement. So how do we spend these dollars in an appropriate way that our children and grandchildren will see for many, many years to come?
And so how do you?
So we have done a ton of public input and public engagement. People told us the way that they want to spend that money, and that's what we're doing. We're starting to deploy this money in communities. But for people who say that we are spending our money so slow, let me tell you this.
And they are saying that. What is going on? You've had this money for however long now.
Right. Number one, we aren't the only community that's in this predicament. I would say 99% of the money is obligated, which means that we have plans for spending. We have until 2026 to spend the money and until the end of 2024 to obligate those funds. But like I said, almost 99% is already obligated. So there are already plans. But it takes time to lay a foundation in order to spend federal dollars so in a way that they won't be recalled. We want to make sure that we are dotting every I and crossing every T so we don't have to give this money back or leave any money on the table. So we're developing new programs based on what people told us they wanted, what kind of assistance they wanted with small businesses, with down payment assistance, with nonprofit assistance, our corridor grants. These are all new programs that we have had to stand up, but we also have to stand them up within the confines and the structure that the federal government gives us.
The parameters are attached to this money.
Exactly.
And so when you say 90% of it is already obligated, is that by the parameters that the federal government set out?
Yes, those are by the parameters that the federal government has set out. And we're also continually meeting with our department heads, our cabinet, to make sure that they are on track to spend the money. There will be some reallocation of some dollars of, things that we thought we could do at the beginning of this process that we just don't have the capacity to do. So we're working with the Board of Aldermen to put through some reallocation bills. So they'll see those in the spring. And we will continue to spend the money. But the one thing I did find out as we were going through this process is that it takes almost 2 years from the time that money is approved to the time that people see change on their streets.
Oh.
So I've been doing a deep dive into what are our processes? How long does this take? And then also trying to communicate that so we can set expectations.
And so give us a sense of what the obligations are for the ARPA funds. So you can't step outside of that, as you mentioned, and have money recalled, because the government would then say, we said spend it on healthcare, you spent it on volleyball courts.
Right. Well, I will say that the federal government has been very flexible in what we can and cannot spend it on, but it's been very flexible. So but the key thing to remember is that we are looking at things that we could not previously do because of the pandemic. So these are recovery funds from the pandemic. But we are spending a lot on traffic safety, for example. We saw a lot of people start to drive erratically, so we're doing traffic calming. Again, that money takes time because we have to design the new traffic patterns and design new streets. So that will take time. We'll start to see those projects by the end of 24, beginning of 25.
Okay.
We have $37 million in what we call corridor grants along our main thoroughfares in North St. Louis. 700 people applied for those funds. So it takes time to go through those applications, to vet those applications, to make sure that people are who they say they are and not trying to defraud us. We have tens of millions for street repaving. Again, you'll see that at the end of 24, beginning of 25.
And people are shouting right now hearing that, because I know one of the main things you get is, can we fix the potholes?
Yes. And let me tell you, if people have potholes, they need to go ahead and let CSB know. So call the city's Citizen Service Bureau, because potholes we actually fix within 24 to 48 hours.
When you know about them.
When we know about them. We don't have the capacity to just have somebody running around the city looking for potholes.
I actually wondered that. Is there somebody in the city who just drives?
No, there is not.
Report your potholes, people.
Report your potholes. Okay. And we also have some down payment assistance programs as well
for housing.
For housing, up to $50,000.
That's real money.
That's real money, because we have to rebuild a market in North St. Louis. There hasn't been a housing market in North St. Louis, and so we have to have a hefty down payment assistance program in order to rebuild that market.
And it's safe to say that people want to live.
Yes.
Because I want to shift to population
Yes.
and population loss and population growth strategy.
Right.
But clearly, you and I both know realtors. People want to live in the city, maybe not enough of them. So the number leaving is greater than the number coming.
Right.
But there are people who want to live in the city and cannot afford to buy a home.
Right. Or the home that they are considering doesn't appraise out because there's no market. Right. So again, back to the strategy of rebuilding a market, providing a hefty down payment assistance in order to fill in that appraisal gap. We have some nonprofit loan programs that are coming out, also some small business loan programs and contractor loan funds that's also going to be launched in the first quarter of 2024 as well, because we realize that contractors sometimes have to wait a long time to get payment from, whoever they're working with. So we're providing loans so they can fill that operational fund gap.
Regarding population loss, once the census said, oh, by the way, not only are white families leaving, but black families are leaving St. Louis City and leaving St. Louis County and moving to St. Charles County. Although, I always say this, the region is shrinking. So St. Charles County is growing, but the region has lost, I believe from the census, 10,000 residents. So we as a region are not growing, although St. Charles County is. How do you turn that tide?
Well, that's also part of our economic justice strategy. We need to provide opportunities for people to come to St. Louis. So we're rebuilding our housing market. We also are building workforce strategies. So we purchased a building on Martin Luther King, which is the old Killark Electrical Facility. It's 150,000 square feet, and we're going to turn it into a world-class workforce development agency or center, partnering with our unions and other private partners to bring opportunity within our communities to meet people where they are, so they don't have to travel all the way to Earth City, for example, just to learn to be a plumber or pipe fitter. Not that that's a bad thing, that we love that facility out there, but we want to meet people where they are, but they can get on a bus and go on Martin Luther King real quick, to be able to train and get new skills so they can join the middle class and build their families.
Those who, and I'm thinking of one individual in particular who's no longer an elected official, but was hypercritical of your focus on North City. And to that, I remember reading responses that disinvestment has occurred in North City. So why is anyone upset that there would be investment, purposeful investment? How did you and do you respond to the notion that all your focus is on North City to the detriment of South City, if you will?
Well, South City already has everything that it needs. They have retail, they have grocery stores, they have banks. But do you find that same sort of infrastructure in North City? They have jobs. So we need to make sure that all our city grows, because our city cannot succeed or grow if over half of it is left to fail. And the people who were leaving that we talked about in the census were leaving. We lost about 20,000 African Americans in the city since the last census. So they're going other places for opportunities for themselves, for their children, for safe neighborhoods. And so we want to make sure that we fix those things so people will come back to St. Louis City and North St. Louis.
Talk about downtown. There is a vibrancy in downtown St. Louis. The whatever impact, whatever purpose has been put into reducing crime really is working.
Yes.
I want to say 20% drop.
20%. Yes, absolutely. Well, it starts with, we hired our first police chief from outside of the city in our entire history, in Chief Robert J. Tracey. We also opened the Office of Violence Prevention to look at alternative methods of response. So we have the Cops and Clinicians program that has to date helped over thousands of people get connected directly to services that they need and avoid ERs and jail. We are also making a robust investment in our young people. shooting on Juneteenth last year, in my opinion, was a cry for help from our young people that they want safe spaces to have fun. And so we have responded in kind by opening our rec centers late on the weekends and continuing to engage with our young people to give them opportunities to have fun in safe spaces, but also connect them with resources that they need for their families and themselves as well.
What keeps you up at night? Does anything?
Well, I do sleep pretty well, but I would say every morning I wake up and I look at the crime report and I pray, Lord, please no homicides, please no homicides. Not that, any homicide or any shooting in itself is a tragedy, but losing more lives to homicide is the one thing that really tugs at my heartstrings, even though a lot of times I don't know the victims. But
right.
At least once a month, at least in my first couple of years, about once a month, I either knew the victim or knew of the victim because I'm born and raised here. This is my community.
So that, waking up, looking at the crime report.
Yes.
So it's better.
It is better. This morning when I woke up, there were no incidents to report from yesterday.
None. Zero. Well, why isn't that a headline? Nothing happened in the city, y'all.
Nothing happened. Right.
Everybody partied and went home and worked and got there safely.
Right. Well, nothing was reported.
No, well, that is clear.
Yeah.
I have followed you on Twitter, and I didn't look at your Twitter account today. I meant to because I wanted to see if you were taking anybody down.
No, I've been off Twitter for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought that was the case. Yeah. I thought that was when you were on X as it is now.
Yeah.
You did not take kindly to people who tried to come at you, if you will. Why were you that way?
Oh.
And are you still that way?
Absolutely, I'm still that way. But I try to fight fear with facts. And a lot of times I think people are coming at me with a lot of things that just aren't true. And so that's one of the reasons why I fought back. And a lot of times people are just rude on social media. It is really easy for people to be rude and crass behind a keyboard or behind a device to say things on social media that they would never say to your face.
That we know to be true. I had Dr. Donald Suggs on the podcast as well. He is the publisher of the St. Louis American newspaper. Great man.
Yes.
A legend, such an impactful person in our community. And I asked him about the criticism of the newspaper. The St. Louis American, for those who do not know, is a weekly African-American newspaper, top weekly, not just of Black newspapers, but top weekly in the country here in St. Louis. And I asked him about the criticism that the American just purely supports Mayor Jones, but does not criticize her enough. His response was that he felt that they needed to balance, and I'm paraphrasing, that they needed to balance what he found to be or felt is an undue criticism from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. That they tend to be hypercritical of you. So he felt that it's okay for them to balance that out and to support you. How do you navigate that?
Well, I would say, number one, I appreciate that sentiment because as you know, as many of you know, I fought the good fight with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for many, many years when they were under the leadership of their previous editor,
who's gone now.
Yeah, who's Todd Robertson. And I also found out from some of my fellow elected officials across the country that cities that he's come from, that he also did the same thing with Black and brown elected officials. So this is his jam, right? So, and you know, I felt like as I was going through it that, you know, I just stopped reading it, you know, because I knew a lot of it was untrue, it was made up, and a lot of it was just baseless and borderline racist. I mean, the one editorial they wrote, we need to bring down the high-flying treasurer. I mean, just say the quiet part out loud, don't you? Just call me uppity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I won't. I'm not going to shy away from being the woman I was raised to be by my dad and my mother and my grandmother, to be a strong Black woman who's here to fight for her community, and I know the shoulders that I stand on, my ancestors who moved here from the Jim Crow South for a better life, and I, a lot, they can say what they want to, but I'm here to serve. And they talk bad about Jesus when he was healing the sick, so not that I'm Jesus, but
So, speaking of, you brought your father up, and it is a dream of mine that I would get the two of you together. So I'm saying this on this podcast because this is being recorded, that he said yes, that the two of you, and my desire to talk to the two of you together is, it is rare in this country that you'd have a father-daughter, both in politics,
right.
Both have weathered storms. He,
right.
of course, weathered his own storm and lived to tell, right? So he said yes, Mayor Jones. So
if he said yes, I say yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I should have had him just walk in here. Darn it.
Well, I'm going to warn you, he talks a lot more than I do.
Well, I have interviewed him before. Yes, I do realize that. But how do you go to him for advice even now in your career?
Absolutely. My father's a brilliant man. And he's one of the smartest people I know. His memory is...
He's got such a memory, so much history.
And a lot of institutional knowledge. So I'll run ideas by him, say, Dad, this is what I'm thinking of. What do you think? We don't always agree. Sometimes we have it out. But it's funny how they question me for going to my father for advice, or thinking that he is somehow running the office behind the scenes, or some sort of puppet master or puppeteer. But they don't question men who have fathers in this business. They don't ask George Bush, do you ask your dad for advice? I'm sure he does. Liz Cheney probably asked her father for advice. But it seems to be an issue here. But I don't care. He's my daddy. I love him. and ask anybody, don't you go to your parents for advice?
Right. You should.
Right. You should.
Absolutely. I want to hit you with a U.S. Senate congressional race. Wesley Bell steps out of the U.S. Senate race to take on Congresswoman Cori Bush. I was reminded of what President Barack Obama said I didn't know when, I had to look it up, April 2019. He's in Berlin. He's doing a town hall, and he's asked about Democrats at the time running in primaries really taking each other on. And he mentioned the phrase, he warned progressives of not engaging in a circular firing squad. That has stuck with me since 2019, that Democrats tend to engage in a circular firing squad. And when I heard Wesley Bell stepping into the race, I just thought of that. What was your initial reaction to him stepping out of the U.S. Senate race and then to take on Cori Bush?
I was... I questioned. I didn't know. I was like, why? And then I thought about the constant fight that has happened in this district over the past 50 plus years, even before I was born. And I thought about how back in 1968, when Bill Clay Sr. was first elected to this seat, and how he was challenged by Black Democrats for the first 5 to 6 reelection terms, because people thought he was radical, and so there are a lot of similarities, right? A lot of people think that Cori is radical, and she is on some positions, but she got into this position in order to try to make a difference for her community. And I'm never going to talk anybody out of running for office. We live in a republic where anybody can run for office. But I will say that I was a little disappointed. With all of the attacks that Black women have to go through, and to see this, coming from, people that we know, It stings a little. Reminds me of the races that I've had to run against black men in this city. And
well, we know where they are now. Okay.
We won't talk about that. All I can do is pray that this particular situation doesn't divide our communities, because we all need to be working together rather than running against each other, just because of a few issues here and
Somebody
there.
calling me. My phone is ringing.
Uh-oh.
That's the mayor of Belleville calling me. I'm talking to the mayor of St. Louis, Mayor of Belleville. Before we let you go, I want to ask you two quick questions. And one is new circuit attorney, not new at this point anymore,
Right.
but do you meet with him? Do you have conversations with him? And how do you think he's doing?
Yes, we meet with, I actually have an open door policy for all citywide elected officials. So I meet with what I call the countywide elected officials, those who are considered county elected officials, once a month. But we also have an open door policy, for Gabe to call us anytime. Our chief of staff and Gabe were good friends, so he keeps in touch with him to, we just try to make sure that he has what he needs in order to do the best job that he can.
And the Justice Center, you mentioned that. You had 10, 11, 12 people die. 2024, that would be a goal, that nobody dies in the Justice Center.
But I think we also have to remember that our detainees come to us from a myriad of different backgrounds and have a whole host of comorbidities that have never been addressed by the healthcare system. And we're talking about individuals who sometimes have never seen a doctor since they were kids, when their mother was required to take them to the pediatrician. So we deal with a lot of mental issues. About a third or more of our population has undiagnosed mental illness. We deal with a lot of substance abuse, because several of the deaths have been overdoses. People sneak things into the jail. And so our commissioner is trying her best to install new body scanners in order to make sure that we can prevent that from happening. And then we also, again, we have people who have undiagnosed diabetes and hypertension, and we have to, with our medical system, try to diagnose and build a whole health history.
In the jail, which is very difficult to do. And so we are in the process of changing our medical provider. Okay.
We have an RFP out now, and we have a temporary medical provider that's there now, and we're totally revamping how we provide medical services in the facility.
So is it safe to say that the previous medical provider was falling down on the job if you're not assessing every inmate as they come in? Well, I mean, does it even happen? I don't even know.
I have been advised by the city attorney just to say that we have not renewed the contract with the previous medical provider.
Okay. So we've certainly have identified that as an issue that we need to somehow address going forward.
Yes, absolutely.
You have been clear that you're going to run again.
Yes, absolutely running again.
Why are you going to run again?
Because there's more work to be done. And there's no way that we can change a whole lifetime of historic wrongs in our city in 4 years. So there's more work to be done. We still have $250 million of RAM settlement money earning interest in an account, and we want to make sure that we spend that in the most responsible way. If it was up to me, I would establish a municipal endowment fund, and we would live off the interest and put that towards projects, more streets projects, infrastructure, and other things. We have tons of infrastructure projects to still address, and I want to stem the tide of people leaving the city. I want to start to grow the city's population again. So and that's just the tip of the iceberg of the things that I want to do.
It's often said that so once a politician says, I'm going to run again, then there's so much focus on the campaign and the fundraising that has to take place versus the job itself. That's a balancing act.
Yeah, but we never stopped running. We never stopped raising.
That.
Right, we never stopped raising money. I never just told my campaign team, okay, race is over.
We'll see in a couple of years.
Right, see in 4 years. No, we constantly keep people engaged. We constantly still raise money, and I have to do call time at least once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the challenges of being a first Black woman to serve as mayor in the city of St. Louis. And I've been the victim of sexism and racism, and it is real. Yes. I know that people want to think it's not, but It is, people. It is.
Right.
So what are the challenges of being the first? And do you face racism and or sexism? You've talked about that already. But.
Yes, all the time. I also live by a quote that says, being a Black mayor is a balancing act between white fear and Black expectations.
Both of which can impact one's journey.
Both of which can. There were a lot of people who were fearful of what I would do, or that I would defund the police, or that I wouldn't treat people well just because they were a different color than me. But I hire the right person for the job and treat everybody the same, no matter what color they are, what background they come from, or any identity they hold. And I realize that I am mayor of this entire city. So whether they voted for me or not, I am still their mayor. I've had people, get up in my face at neighborhood meetings to challenge me on, different things, and I don't back down from a fight. So
we know this about her.
But also. And on the flip side, I've had people who look like me think that I'm not doing enough for our people or fast enough, because, again, once you're in this office, especially as a Black woman, they expect things to change like overnight. And it doesn't work like that. So I see my job as a convener, also of, looking at our region and our region's leaders. If you look at all of the county executives of all of our surrounding counties, they're all white men.
Right.
And I'm the only one. So I have taken the time to establish relationships, to have lunch, to, get to know them on a personal level, so we can then work together, because relationships are primary. Everything else is derivative.
That's how you get it done. How you get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Belleville, who called me during this interview, is a woman.
Yes.
She's the first woman to serve in Belleville. So that's a rarity.
Right.
Before we let you go, for sure, I said that already. Chief Tracey, I saw him a couple of months ago at an event, and his wife, who's in education. I did not know that,
Brenda,
but
yeah.
Yes, she filled me up with her desire that the schools in the city be better, and what are we doing? And she was so passionate, not about her, but about Chief Tracey. I've interviewed the two of you together when he was hired, when he was selected. Do you grade him? How is he doing in your mind?
I give him an A. I mean, he's been here 12 months on January 9th, and he, along with other everything that we've done to reduce crime, he's been part of bringing our homicides down by 20%, over 20%, and our juvenile shootings are down 40%.
That's real progress. That is real progress. You went against the grain. The state of Missouri said everybody can carry, doesn't matter, but the city said no, and that was a battle.
Yes.
How is that going?
I honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't had a report from the chief about how they've implemented that law, because there's still some policies that they still need to write internally. But I do know that we are still confiscating guns to the tune of, we've confiscated over 2,000 guns this year.
In 2023.
Yeah, these are illegal guns. People, guns that people have stolen from or gotten from whatever method they've gotten them. But we've confiscated a lot of weapons.
Well, Mayor, let me say that the door is always open.
Yes.
And that microphone will always be on for you should you want to come back and talk about what you're doing to improve the city and to help all of its residents and to get more people to be excited about living and working in the city of St. Louis. We thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Mayor Tishaura Jones, the great city of St. Louis, with us on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. And I want you to share this podcast and subscribe and let me know what you thought. Leave us a comment. You can go to 9pbs.org and find all of our previous podcasts and share those as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with more Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center and the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation.